Hello. Welcome to the Miles with Moms podcast, a podcast for moms who run by moms who run. I am Whitney. I am not going to say what you guys just wrote under my name.
I will.
Oh my gosh.
Trisha, behave yourself.
I will try.
Did you put in David Goggins for yourself, Trisha?
No, I don't know how that happened.
We all have little titles under our names. I'm not going to read mine, but Trisha Goggins.
Whitney is the phone sex operator.
Or someone who sounds like she's taking a dump when trying to sound like a phone sex operator. Okay, sorry. Yes, moving on. Shanna.
Yes.
Shanna's here.
Hi. Oh, hi, guys.
And Olivia.
I'm me and I'm here. I'm me and I am here.
And we have a special guest today. We have Nick Klastava, Coach Nick.
Hi, everybody.
You are the first man to be on our show. You may be the only ever in the history of this podcast to ever be invited on. So congratulations.
A lot of pressure.
Don't screw it up.
Well, we just love you so much that we had to have you on.
Well, thanks.
As the honorary father runner. So today we have a fun episode with Coach Nick. I will tell you more about Coach Nick in a minute and why he is on. But we're going to do a shout out like we like to do. Are you guys good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to shout out Katie. She is Run Like a Mother Too on Instagram. If you do not follow her, you should, because she is hilarious. She is so funny. Her reels are so funny. She lives in New Jersey at the beach, but not like the show. Jersey Shore, I guess. GTL. With her son, who is 9, and her daughter, who is 6, and also her husband. She works full-time as a pediatric occupational therapist, and she does most of her runs before work, and it's become her favorite time of day, even when it's 15 degrees outside. She started running at the age of 18 and around the age of 19 after playing basketball my entire life. Or she began running, sorry, I read that wrong, 18 years ago around the age of 19. She ran a few races and was like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to make it my entire personality. She loves the 5K, and she says that right now she really loves running because she loves to test her limits and she loves the freedom she feels when she is running, which I think we can all relate to. Do you guys follow her?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She's so funny.
It's funny.
Okay, so Nick is here. I'm going to read a little background on Nick, and then we're going to get into grilling him.
The pressure is on. This is a very serious podcast. So.
It is. If you were watching YouTube, you can see we have like a very bright light shining on his face. He's sweating.
Yes.
Okay, so Nick started running back in 1996. And has been competitively running for 24 years now, with a brief break in his 20s. His spark for running came back in high school, being a part of a team and finding a sport that brought out the best in himself. He ran competitively in college for Monmouth. Is that how you say it? Monmouth?
It is. It's on the Jersey Shore, too.
University. Oh, Jersey, yes.
Wow.
In Jersey. After college, he took an 8-year break, and he thought he was done forever. But after moving to Maryland in 2010, Nick found his spark again with running and found a new outlook on running with less pressure and less emphasis on the numbers. And he broke all of his college PRs by the age of 38, which is incredible. I'm going to ask you to drop. I know we're taking an emphasis off of numbers, but you're just going to have to drop some of your PRs. He lives in Baltimore, Maryland now with his wife and his 2 daughters, Chloe and Amelia. Love those names, by the way. Nick has a degree in software engineering and currently works as a program manager by day. He works as head coach of one-on-one run coaching at Running Explained and is also the co-host of the podcast Between Two Coaches. His favorite thing about coaching is to unconditionally support runners and their journeys, which I can attest to because Nick is my coach now.
I am.
Woohoo.
And we've had 6 glorious weeks together so far.
We have.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Wow.
He's been amazing. I'm
Aw.
so glad that I made the switch and he was patient with me because I was like, I'm not ready yet. And he's like, it's good. I'm ready when you are. Okay, so what are some of your PRs, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, hard-hitting questions off the bat.
Dive
So
right in.
the tough thing was I ran in college and I ran the 5K and 10K, and then it was very hard to go back and like have those things looming over you as you in your 30s and you have kids and you're like, those things are way gone. And so I ended up having to be able to run like a 15:35K at 38. I ran a 32:29 10K. I ran a 1:10 half and a 2:30 marathon.
So fast.
That's insane. That's
So
awesome.
fast.
That's insane.
So
Drop the mic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's done.
Okay, so that happens every time, by the way. So we really wanted to have you on because we all love you and we love how supportive you are and how just like you get the struggles of mother runners too. And so I'm going to kick it to Shanna to start off like the real tough, hard-hitting questions, because we just love your outlook on running. Like you can be competitive but still have fun. How it is like joy is the foundation of running, and just because you're having fun running doesn't mean that you're not getting faster. So Shanna, I'm going to kick it to you to get started if you're cool with that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how deep are we allowed to go today?
Trisha, she's like deep, so deep.
So deep.
Okay. Well, I want to start off
He's
with
married,
just like
guys.
your upbringing, because like we all know bits and pieces of your upbringing and your story. You're raised by a single mom, and I think that's the part that really reaches out to me the most, like hits home for me the most, because you are such a involved and like your parenting style with your kids is like you are present, like you are a present father. And I think that's something that I admire so much about you is that, you grew up with such a rough upbringing in a sense. But yet you're so opposite of what you had the example of. And I admire that so much about you. And I think that's why this is going to be such a good conversation for us to all have. For both sides, because I think it's really important for mothers to hear fathers' perspectives and fathers to hear mothers' perspectives. And there's no better person than to have you as the father role on here. But I would love to know just like share a little bit of what you want to share from your upbringing. And if it was ever hard for you to become a father, like, did you ever have fears or reservations, because of your upbringing to have kids and enter that role for yourself?
Yeah, all that. Yeah, so it's weird when you're, I think back and when I was a teenager and kid. So, I grew up in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, and my mom sort of raised us. My parents were separated for different reasons at that time, insurance and other things. And so, but the difficult thing about like, my dad wasn't really present. The difficult thing wasn't just like, abandonment of like, hey, he's in a different town or this and that. Like he lived in my town, right? And he lived 3 blocks over at his parents' house. So, I grew up in a town where he was a very good baseball player and almost, made to the minors, like played for the Red Sox minor league system, and then came back to the same town. He played, high school ball. And so everyone knew him, right? He worked in town. He worked at we'll call it the Legion, the bar in town. And like, so when you would walk around as a teenager and you'd see your last name, they'd be like, oh, you're David Klastava's son. He must be such a great dad. And you'd be like, oh, you probably saw him more recently than I have. And so like, that was tough, right? Because it's not just, hey, abandonment, he's gone. It's like, hey, he's abandoned, but he's looming over you in this town and like, you don't see him. And, so what happens a lot is that then there's a lot of this. So I have a sister too. And I think my mom and sister bonded a lot more. And I don't think I was quite ready, to be, I'll call it the father role, but like that sort of male presence in the house as much. So my mom and sister sort of bonded a lot, and I sort of like was isolated a little bit, like didn't have a dad around. I was really into sports. But raised by my mom, I think I learned a lot of things, and at that time I wasn't probably I wasn't the best. You're a kid. You're a teenager. You don't really see what's happening until you get older and you're like, oh shit, like you did all this. And in those moments it was like, okay, well, I need this, or I need this, or we got to do this. And then you're like, now you're looking back, you're like, oh my God, you were doing all that. And like, I'm struggling to do it with a co-parent. And so I learned a lot. I don't think in those moments I learned it, but as I got older, I was blessed with a ton of empathy. I was highly sensitive. I think nurture versus nature. I think it was a lot of nurture for my mom because this is who she is. And my dad was very narcissistic. And I think if he was around, I probably would have carried some of those that's not a male trait, but some of those things that I don't really want as a part of me. But then when you're raised solely by your mom, I was a highly sensitive kid, which, in the late 90s didn't really resonate with other males. Why males would be males. You just make fun of each other all the time. You say mean things and you're supposed to laugh it off. And I'm like, oh, that hurt my feelings, guys. And they're like, no, it's not supposed to. You're a guy. Like, we're just joking, right? So a lot of that was struggles, right? And I think what I learned a lot of is seeing my mom and seeing what she did sort of helped me kind of and to your question, Santa, I was terrified of being a dad. I didn't know I don't know what it was like to wake up each day and have two parents there and be like, oh, you come downstairs and there's two parents to help you, or things like that. That was not part of my life. And so I was like worried of like, am I know what I'm going to do? I have no one ever to teach me. Didn't really have these father presences around in my life. And, so I was terrified. And it was hard in the beginning because I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what a dad's supposed to do. I was just figuring it out. But, I think because of my mom and seeing what she did, a lot of what I leaned on as a dad is, all the things that I think I hear moms talk about that become, I'm going to air quotes, but mom duties, like, doing laundry or cooking or cleaning or all that stuff. And like, I was just like, no, this is an equal household. Like, I'm going to do this stuff. Do I love doing laundry? No. I actually love cooking? So that's a different one. But do I love cleaning? No. But like, it has to get done. And we both had to do it. And I also inherited a ton of my mom's anxiety around like messes. Like, I can't sit down on a couch and there be a mess around me and be like, oh, this is fine. I'll just sit here and watch TV. Like, I look around, I'm like, I got to get up. And like everyone else will be sitting around and I'm cleaning up the whole room because I just can't relax or I have to leave the room. Mm-hmm. So anyway, long-winded way of saying I inherited a ton from my mom, which I think was great because they aren't always necessarily male traits. I was terrified that I wasn't the right male for a lot of my life, meaning tough enough. I was too sensitive. I tried to fight those feelings away until my 30s when I sort of embraced through therapy who I was, and it's okay to be this different person, because the world needs people who are unique, right? Everyone is unique. So lean into what you're good at instead of trying to be like everyone else. And, it was scary to be a dad, but I figured it out, or still figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, I love that about you. I know I've been able to hear bits and pieces of your story of me just because I love to pry. And I'm like, well, who is this person? How is he such a like invested person in his kids? Like anybody that follows you can see on your stories, like you're always posting dance videos with your children, or you're making crafts with them, or you're like making a pizza while entertaining your two girls. Like it really is so admirable for me to watch that because I feel like we all kind of grow up with different parenting styles, but I would definitely say my mom was the most hands-on. My dad was kind of just there for most of it. And yeah, like it's amazing that your daughters get to grow up to see a father that is so invested in them. Like I can't even explain how much that's going to impact them for so many greater things. Like even the people that they're going to date, like I'm sure like your example is just setting them up with so much success. Like past your running, like you've had so many amazing, like running accomplishments that you've had in your life, but beyond that, like you as a whole person you're wholesome. Like there's nothing about you, Nick, that like isn't going to just change your children's lives, and you're going to give them a life that you wish you always had. Like I'm just so excited for your girls. Like I'm glad that you had daughters because they have such a bright future ahead for them. Like so excited for them.
Well, thank you.
it's always amazing how it's like you can either repeat the pattern, or you can go way in the opposite direction and learn from the lessons and be like, I don't want to be anything like that. So it's amazing that you were able to do that. I'm curious. It seems like you kind of wear like both hats in a way. Like you understand like the mom's point of view, since you were amazingly self-aware as a kid, and saw that everything that or I guess you said when you're older, everything that your mom was bearing, but then now you're a dad. So I'm just wondering, like, are there some things that maybe as moms we don't quite understand, being a father runner or a father that kind of you wish that we did?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I think the things about dads, at least I feel, is I always feel pressure to provide, right? And men aren't always, I don't want to call the breadwinner, but men aren't always the one making more money. But like in the society we live in, where unfortunately men make $1 to 93 cents women make, like sometimes it ends up being that way, and so it's a lot of pressure on you to like make sure you have enough money for your family, and your kids have what they want because they always want more, and like feeling like the bad guy when you're like, all right, because I don't know if everyone is, at least in my family, like I'm doing the budget, right? And so like I'm like, oh well, we can't spend, but I know you want this, but like, so like just like kind of keeping everyone understanding, but like trying not to be a jerk about it. Like, oh, we can't have this fun thing we all want, or we can't go on a 7th vacation this year. I'm just going that many, but
Yeah.
like that. And like, so, I don't know, think that's like something mom needs to be aware of, but I think it's just like, as I've always felt a pressure to kind of provide and like support, and like, also like sometimes to feel like I'm the, I don't say bad guy, but like, my kids say, mom, you're all going to say disagree, but 700 times a day. And, to go back to this idea of like, feeling like I needed to be present with my kids because of the abandonment I suffered, it also like weighs on me super hard as a male. And like, while I am able to express myself a little bit thanks to therapy and explain, there's also like a lot of stuff we hold as men that like, it's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to bury this, or I'm just going to deal with this because like it's nothing to talk about, right? Like this is a difficult situation because where do I lean? Like I can't lean to my wife saying like the kids are asking for you all the time, and that upsets me. Like she doesn't want them to say mom 100 times a day. And it's like I can't lean on my kids and be like, ask me instead of her mom because I want to be present in your life because I have trauma from my past. They don't understand that, right? So like, it's I carry a lot of that, and just saying, and like I this like it's hard to be there and have my kids walk right by all the way up to the upstairs while my wife's showering to ask her to make them waffles when I'm standing in the kitchen, and I'm chasing them down, like trying to grab them from her and be like, give me the waffles, I can do this. But like, and then like, so I'm here, I'm present, but my kids almost don't want me to be present. And I know that's not the case, but it's like, sort of like, I'm trying to protect my kids from my wife, from protect my wife and her sanity from the kids at times, and like playing like protector. I don't know if you ever watch Bluey, but there's the episode where the mom says like, I need 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is. Like I feel like that sometimes as the dad of like, no, we can't go get mom, we're just going to hang out together, what do you want to do, because she needs time, because it's never going to happen to me, at least yet in my life. And maybe other dads it does, but my kids have never like asked for me so many times in like a short period of time where I'm like, go away, this is great. Like, so I think that's like the stuff, like dads, like we're carrying this stuff, and we at least, I, from my perspective, like I'm aware of what's happening, right? Like I'm aware that like they don't, they're saying mom for the 600th time today, and like I can't fix that, but I can step in where I can and help and just do the things. Or in those moments when the kids are just all over the wife, like there's things I can be doing, right? And so I could be cleaning a room, or getting dinner done, or instead of like, well, we both should make it together and the kids will just, anyway. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'm answering it in a way of saying like there's a lot we carry as men. I think men struggle to express what's going on because of a feeling of needing to be tough. And like I think it can come out, and it's just like in a bad way, and sometimes it's just like, well, understanding we have this like pressure sometimes to feel the need to do all this stuff to provide. And like I think it helps from the mom side of just like helping us feel like that's not the most important thing. I think a lot of dads might feel a lot better if a mom said, I don't need you to work 60 hours a week so we can go on do all these things if they do feel that way. But like I don't need you to do all these things. I need you to be around. I want you to be with the kids. I want you to be hanging out. Like I feel like a lot of dads would love to hear that instead of like, because internally we're like, we always got to make more money. We always got to do more for our family so they can have the best life. And, you know, I think if we, you may say it and we may miss it too. I can't speak for all dads, but at least that helps me sometimes be grounded.
So that's like a flavor of dad guilt. Like we have the mom guilt anytime we maybe take time for ourselves or something. But dad guilt is the flavor is if you're not working and making money for the family to provide, then you're not doing what you should be doing.
It feels that way at times. I don't, like I said, this is just Nick's perspective and still being present, but still feeling that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm taking notes. I'm sending this to my husband. You could be cleaning a room when they say 100 times.
I'm gonna get so many. I'm gonna get so much hate mail from dads.
I know. No, I honestly, so much of it is like conversations that I've had with my husband. It's a little bit different because he, you know, I'm very much like kicking him out the door to go for he's running. He's doing attempts at making time for himself. Do you feel like it's hard? I think it's hard.
Attempts.
He's making attempts. I mean, I think it's hard to take that time when you're the parent that's out working, you know, because then there is the pressure to spend time with your kids, and it's instead of dad guilt from taking time to yourself, it's that time that they were gone. So do you feel like you have dad guilt when you take time to go out running? Because for us, that's like, I think almost every episode we've done has gone back to mom guilt, every single one. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I feel like we can't budge without just having guilt over something. And I know that it's inherent, like no matter what I tell myself, it doesn't go away. But like with my husband, like when he goes and plays pickleball for 2 hours, like he does not feel guilty about going and doing that unless it's been like, you know, unless he was like at work for a really long time, then it's like a little bit there, but like it's not inherently in him to have guilt about it. Do you have it, like just from your standpoint, because your wife works too, right?
She does. No, and so it's interesting you say that because one of the things I learned the most of working, you know, as a coach, I have a lot of female athletes. I don't know. I think I just relate maybe more to females, but and like hearing you guys talk, that mom guilt you talk about. Sometimes I don't scoff at it, but I'm just like, oh man, like that's what you guys feel. Like that doesn't come naturally to me. But it doesn't mean I don't have dad guilt around things. Like when I became a parent, I used to like meet up with friends on Monday night and Tuesday night, do a track workout at 7 p.m. and Thursday nights, like run late and come home at like 8 or 9 at night every night after working all day. And I'd be like, oh, well, as long like I just say, hey, honey, I'm going out. She'd do her own thing and be fine. And then I had kids, and I was like, I don't not only dad guilt, but like I don't want to be not around my kids. I leave them in the morning before they go to school or before they went to daycare, and then I'd get home and I'd be like, I'm gonna go run for an hour and a half, and then like do a workout or something, and then my kids are gonna go to bed. I'm not gonna see them. Like I don't want that, right? And so I lucked out in a situation where I could run at lunch, and sort of it opened up this ability for me to be like, okay, because if I didn't run at lunch, I'd probably be a morning runner. But like it's just I got this done, and then like my day was home, and as soon as I came home, it was time with my family, whatever they needed, right? And you know, I think for me, a lot of it comes from making sure I check in with my wife. Like if I want to go to a race for my athletes, like giving ample time in advance and saying like, hey, this, but also like encouraging her to be like, okay, well, if you want to do something with your friends, like she does book club, she goes out with some friends sometimes on a Friday night. And there's never me being like, oh, I can't watch 2 kids by myself. Like that sounds impossible. Like, of course I could watch my kids. I'm a parent of the kids. Like, is it harder? No, I mean, maybe, but like once the mom's gone, like then the kids say dad, right? So it gets that it's fine enough. They will, I can't stop them from calling her constantly on their iPads, but like I'm like outside of that, it's like no, I want to encourage her to have her moments. And this is like just me being cognizant, I think, as seeing my mom and seeing her not be able to do as much with her friends when we were young. And again, I didn't realize this stuff till I was older, but like being like, okay, I'm a parent of two also. And like if my wife wants to go out, like never saying, I can't handle this, I can't do this. Like always encouraging it and just being like, okay, look, I will try my best to put the kids to sleep, but sometimes they're like, we're staying up, and you fight that battle, right? So I don't always win and get them to bed before she gets home, but like at least it's like she gets her time out because she needs that too, right? And so the dad guilt comes from making sure I'm not taking too much for myself because I think she's supportive, very supportive to say, oh, you work a lot, you're doing a lot for the family, take that time. But I feel almost guilty to take more without making sure she's getting some. Like if I was only the one going out and she never was, I'd probably never go out unless she found friends or found things because I'd feel so bad all the time of not being around. And like so again, this just comes from what I observed and like what I hear from sometimes when she wants to go out with friends and she's like, oh, I can't go out tonight. My friends, her husband says he can't watch the one kid. And I'm like, oh, okay. Does she want me to watch her kid too? I'm just kidding. But like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, so like, and it sucks. Like, I've never heard that from a male friend being like, oh, can't go out tonight. My wife can't watch the kid while I go out. Like, that's not a thing that would exist. So like, I just want to like be encouraging and like help her get that space. Cause there's been more than two hands the amount of time she's heard from a friend who just said, oh, I can't go out because I can't find someone to watch my kid and I have a significant other there.
Trisha, I feel like you were going to say something. You leaned in.
Yeah. Oh, so much. Like, oh God, I could go so many places with this. But first off, Nick, I just want to say, like, thank you on behalf of women everywhere for being such a phenomenal partner and a phenomenal father. And I say that as a single mom who has not had the experience that you are giving your wife and your kids. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I also just want to say thank you because you reach out to me all the time, checking in on me. And so I just think you're just incredible to, have everything on your plate that you do, but also take the time out of your day to check in on all of us all the time. So thank you, first and foremost.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But I also just wanted to ask you, just being raised as a son in a house just by your mom, like is there any advice that you would give us single moms raising sons? Because I know I'm not the only one out here.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. So I think what was really helpful for my mom, or what was helpful for me, was like, she was involved still. Like, I don't think she understood a lot of things I understood. Like, I was very into sports. She was not. Like, I would watch sports constantly. And, she wasn't into that stuff. Like, I did track and she never ran. So she had to learn this sport with me. And, just her and my sister and her really were much more in sync when it came to likes, dislikes, everything going on. And I think what she did a good job of was to still make my things feel understood. Like, oh, you hear sports, like I'll understand a little bit and help. Like she'll still text me and go, the Chiefs won, or at the Super Bowl, like, wow, that was really bad. And I'm like, I know. So like she'll just be involved enough to like follow the things that I'm passionate about, even though I know she's not like a football fan or she knew nothing about running. But like also like she knew sort of how to be there in moments. I didn't have a lot of relationships at that age. So like I didn't need to lean on my mom and be like, why are girls so mean to me? I just did more sports, hung out with my guys. I think Kelly would always call me a goody two shoes because my curfew would be 10 and I'd be home at 9:58 every single time. Like if I was like even a second late, I'd feel really bad. So like, I don't even know if there's a time I broke my curfew in all 4 years of high school. And this was like in the days with no cell phone. So you'd like call collect 1-800-collect, pick me up, mom. And do you accept a call from pick me up mom at Quick Check? And then like, those were those days where you didn't have a way to check in, like, and be like, I'll be 2 minutes late. So, I think like, I guess my advice is like, it's a lot of men just probably have interests that aren't aligning with maybe what you guys have. And like, we don't need you to know everything about Star Wars or, Lord of the Rings or everything, but like just having a tiny bit of interest enough to like feel like you're present with it, like really helps us. And my mom would sometimes try and play video games with me, but like, she didn't do that. And like, that's what I was doing. So I always appreciate those moments, even if like I maybe wasn't the nicest in those moments, to be like, oh man, like we're dying, mom. Like, what are you doing? Like, shoot that plane. But like, I did appreciate her being involved because I didn't have that other figure who kind of would understand this stuff. And leaning on friends is hard, because you only see them so often, and you want to be you want to feel connected in your house, right, to your parents, even if it's only one.
I like that. Thank you.
That's great advice.
That's such a good
That
question
really is.
too, Trisha. I'm glad you asked that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I usually, you still never think about that. Like I like, even with the two parents in my house, like raising boys is just so different. Like I have three of them, and my two just turned 5, my twins, and then my oldest is just turned 8. And him and I are like, he's not my sports boy, and he's my first boy. And I was like, you think when you have a boy, it's like monster trucks and all that, and he's not. He's like science and numbers, and he'll ask me multiplications on the way home from school, and I'm like, you're too smart for me. Like, but I love that you mentioned like, just you don't have to know or be into all the things that they are into, but that you can just connect by even asking questions about the things that fascinate them. Like I just enrolled my boy up for STEM, and he loves it. I have no idea what they do there, but he loves it. And he's like, he has the happiest face. And I'm like, I don't know why this 8-year-old would rather do that after school than like go play baseball, but it's totally good. But I think that was good for me to hear, even with having a husband in the household, because even my son and my husband are two opposites. Like my husband was very sports involved, and again, my boy just doesn't really care. And I think just reminding us, like as moms, like we can connect with our kids and not even fully be interested in it, but just show our interest by asking questions and being fascinated with what they're into. I don't know.
I feel like that's a good, just like life skill, social skill. Because I mean, there's a lot of things my husband's really into that I'm like, whatever. And I could definitely gain some more interest in it.
Except hunting. I'll never ask more questions about hunting. You like it, go for it. Thumbs up. Do not tell me anything. Do not.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, like binoculars, cool.
Okay. See things that are far away but up close. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question unless somebody else has one. Okay.
Go for it.
All eyes are on me. Okay. Obviously, like, I don't even remember how you and I started talking, Nick, but one of the things that drew me to you was how you were able to put having fun running at the forefront. And so I am curious, and Shanna's curious about this too, like how you were able to, well, this is twofold. One, how you were able to find time to run as a dad and run something. Was your 2:30 when you were a dad?
Yes.
Okay. How you had time to find that or to train for that. And then like, was that during the period where you found joy, or was that like a lesson that you realized, okay, that was a lot and it was too much?
Yeah. I spent, high school, Nick started running, and, you get success when you start running, right? So I was like, oh, I'll do this thing. And there was some consistency. I started running pretty good times. So I knew I had some talent because, like, not only that, but I was like placing pretty high in New Jersey, which is always a really good high school running state. And I was like, okay. And then I went off to college, and, ran at a D1 level, which I wasn't ready for, and struggled a bit of like really struggled because instead of running with like people who were similar to me that I could keep up with, now I'm running with like potential Olympians in the Division 1 atmosphere. So like I was getting lapped running my PR in a 5K, and I'm like, that was hard, right? And it was like, but I was so obsessed with the numbers and places and winning that like this was the wrong place for me, or I needed to adapt. And I never adapted, right? And so I stopped college. I didn't really reach my potential, took a lot of years off, came back to running, and then went right back to that same thing. Oh, I used to run these times, got to run them immediately. Only been 8 years off. So why can't I just run these times today? And I think I humbled a lot. I would do 5Ks and lose to a dad and his son. And I'd be like, I'm 30 now. Like I'm losing to a 16-year-old. I mean, in some ways in a 5K, like they're probably faster still because it's what they do, but it was still like very humbling. But I was like so obsessed with these numbers that I kept slowing down my journey so much that like I wasn't making progress. I wasn't even getting back to where I was, and I wasn't sure I'd ever would. And then I just had this. I hired a coach. I think you had too, David Roach, and he really sort of started helping me. Like I told him in my initial email, I was like, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. And like, I can see every 100-meter split, and I know my exact mile pace. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be running this 400. There's 800 at this, but 100 meters in, I'm like 0.02 seconds, not that much, but like a second off. I got to pick it up. And it was like just overwhelming amounts of data, right? I'm very good at math, so I could quickly figure things out. And then it was just my downfall. And he was like, we're not running the track anymore. We're going to do it on the roads. And so we worked together for a while, and I sort of had this epiphany at one point, and I was like, workouts are about gaining fitness, not proving. It was a big epiphany for me. This idea that like all you're trying to do is get faster in training, and you don't need to go prove every single workout how fast you are, because you'll never make it to your race. In high school, I was constantly called the practice champion, where I'd win practice, but like not be ready on race day, because ideally I was overdoing it in practice and not ready for race day. And so after working with David, having this kind of epiphany about workouts, I started to stop taking splits, right? Like say I get 8 times 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. I would start my watch, I'd do a 15-minute warm up. 15 minutes, I'd run hard for 2 minutes. I wouldn't lap split. I wouldn't program it in Garmin so it auto lap split. I would look down at like 16:58 and I'd be like, all right, 17 done. And then I'd do in my head, okay, at 19, start again. 21, stop. 23, start again. And like, then I'd finish this workout and I would never know how fast I was running. I didn't know if I was running 5:30 pace, 6-minute pace, but I would end the workout going, oh, well, I worked really hard and I put out all the effort I could today. And I felt like I could do one more rep. And that's the right amount of effort, right? I knew deep down that I would put out, we're all tough. We're all in it to get better. We'll put out the right effort. And I knew that if I worked under that mindset, that at the end of the day, when the workout was done, maybe I could have run a second faster, but psyching myself out, staring at these splits, I probably would have run many seconds slower by the end. And as I kept doing this, I kept stacking wins, because in my mind, I felt like each workout was great success. And then I wasn't overdoing it because I would finish when I was done. I always knew I could do more. And I wasn't getting in my head about the numbers, like tricking me late in the workout, being like, oh my God, I slowed down by a second. The whole thing's ruined. So I would end feeling good. And I kept stacking these wins and removing the numbers more and more from my journey. And it was 2018. I had Chloe was 2 years old Amelia was on her way. And I just had this like great fall where I ran Richmond and I ran a 1:10 half, kind of surprising myself. It was like a 4.5-minute PR. And like, I just was like, it just clicked that day. And I was like, oh my God. And then I went to CIM, like 4 weeks later, and had like the worst block possible between CIM and Richmond. And like every workout was like slower than even the pace I ran a half at. And I was like, oh my God, I lost it all. It's not going to happen. But again, I wasn't really focused on that. I was like, it'll come around. And I think, again, being detached from the numbers, what CIM, I just went out and ran. I didn't even know my splits most of the time. I wasn't looking at my watch. At one point, I was just running, and there was like a pack of like 120 people behind me. And me and my friend were just leading this pack, and I didn't know what pace we're running. And I was like, oh my God, it was like the funniest part about that race is at mile 20, I looked at my watch and I said, all right, Nick, if you can break 2:30, all you have to do is average like 5:50 pace the rest of the way. And I had been averaging like 5:41, my watch said. And I was like, this will be easy. The next mile I ran was 5:50. And I was like, oh my God, I told this number in my head. And I immediately slowed down to it. And like the first time I looked, and the only reason I even saved myself that race was I don't know if you guys follow Steph Rothstein Bruce, but she was in that race and she was racing. And at mile like 21, I hear, go Steph. And I knew who she was because I'd followed professional running. And I was like, oh my God, Steph's going to pass me. And like, instead of like, when she passed, instead of like letting her pass, I kind of like went alongside and said, hey, great job, Steph, and kind of ran with her for like a mile and a half because I was like, I very much treat it as I'm not like racing a woman because I can't let her beat me. She's a professional athlete. Like, it doesn't matter. I was like, you're saving me because you're a professional athlete. You know what you're doing and I'm dying. And so I ran with her for a mile and a half. I got 0 cheers for a mile and a half because everyone's like, go Steph, beat that guy. And I was like, I'm in 180th place. Like, you can cheer me. Like, it doesn't really matter. And so then I ended up running 2:30:47. So I didn't get under, but like, I think I would have blown up a lot. And then I put like a post up like afterwards, like saying like, thanks to Steph for like your support. Like, you don't even know who I am, but like, it's fun to run with your like idols of the sport. And like, she like commented and wrote back, and I thought it was pretty nice. But to answer your, now I've gone off the rails here, but to answer your question, finding the joy in running was what really helped me get faster. Like, it was when I started detaching the numbers, when I started having fun, when I didn't put pressure on every workout, when everything wasn't life or death, pass or fail. There was a period on social media where people used to put red dots if they didn't hit one of their splits by a second. And like, they would put this thing up, like all their splits, and be like one red dot, 8 green dots. And they'd be like, I failed my workout today. And be like, absolutely not. And like, I'd always be in like their DMs being like, how is this failing? Like, anyway, like there was just a wild time of like this pressure of always being perfect. And if you don't hit your splits in training, you'll never be good enough. And like, for me, it's always trying to share that like, I wasn't hitting my splits when I looked in most of my training, but I ran faster because I raced faster because I wasn't trying to overtrain to hit these numbers. So finding the joy, having the fun, that stuff really helped take pressure off, which really sort of helped me just feel more at ease on race day and in training.
That speaks to me so much. And I'm just have to say, I'm really glad that you're coaching me because I kept doing that too. I kept just trying to go back to where I left off when I got injured and then would get injured again. And yeah, it's, and you check me too, because like 2 weeks ago you were like, Whitney, I'm going to have you cover up your watch.
I'm going to send you some tape.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so cool about Steph too. I didn't know that. What year was that you ran CIM?
2018.
2018. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I just want I feel like that's just such an awesome way to coach too, because so many people get so wrapped up in the numbers, and at the end of the day, like, majority of us are not being paid to do this. And I think a lot of people forget that as big of, like, running is obviously such a big part of all of our lives here. But it should be fun. Like, if you're not having fun, what the fuck are you doing? So good job.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it helps because I think a lot of people like think they need to hit these numbers all the time and like put all this pressure on themselves. I mean, you see it all the time in social media, and those posts do the best are the ones that like someone's like, if I don't put pressure on myself, I won't perform, or something about diamonds don't break and whatever quote they want to use. Like, and it's just always like, you don't have to be this serious, guys. Like, you can have success.
I'm just kidding.
I've never heard that saying.
No, I said the saying.
Wow.
I was just something about like,
under pressure. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like the constant, like, people need to feel like they are working as hard as humanly possible all the time, or overdoing it, or pushing so hard. And if they don't, then they're not trying, right? And these are the people who don't make it to their races or feel flat in their races, run into an injury, when there's so much success from just looking long term too. I don't care what age you are. You can be 42 and thinking, what about in 3 years? How fast can I be? Like, that's so much easier than being like, what can I do in 3 months? you're going to put pressure on every day. Every day matters if it's your only goal is 2 or 3 months away. So yeah, it's I try and work with athletes to really help them do less and just take pressure off the numbers especially when I see them, falling apart because a workout wasn't right to the numbers, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, did you try your hardest? Did you feel good at the end? Like, did you feel like you were working hard? Then you did it right? Like, I don't expect you to be perfect because every day is different.
And you do such an amazing job. I don't know how you do it. It seems you seem like one of those people that has more time in the day, like, because you coach a bunch of athletes, you have a full-time job, you're an engaged dad and husband, and yet you're reaching out to people who you don't even coach, like us unofficially, like checking in on us. Like, what is it in you that just feels so compelled to like connect with the running community and like put wind in our sails, if we're going to be using cliche cheesy sayings?
Good question. That was my next question too.
Probably a unmet need in most of my life of feeling support from people, and now it's like trauma being like, well, I'm going to support everyone because I didn't get it right, jokingly, but also like probably true, right? Like, I think for me, it's I get great joy in like supporting people. I don't feel like first start off like have people who care about you and reach out to you, right? Like, I have that at this time of life. There was a part where I was just reaching out to everyone. I didn't really have that, not my wife, but like friends who were like supporting me in that way. And I would just reach out to everyone and I was draining myself. This was like early social media days. And I was trying to be everything for everyone and getting nothing back. And then like I'd break down at some point. I'd be like, oh my God, why isn't anyone supporting me? And so then, now I have a structure of people who I know will support me when I need it. And then like on top of that, I can kind of go out there and just, if I see something I can say to someone that I've been through, like I can offer some support and like just in a kind way. It's not about like, what does this do for me? It's just about like, could this help someone in some way? Like, I wish I knew this. I did some calls recently with people who wanted to become coaches, and I was like, I wish I had a mentorship call when I started coaching, because I would have learned so much. And like at the same time, I'm just like trying to figure out like how can I helping people, seeing people go through things that I've experienced or seen in my life. If I can just be there for someone, it makes a difference. I know it makes a huge difference because it has for me. As long as I am not draining myself so much that I can't take care of myself, right? Water your own garden first before others. I think that grounded me a lot and has helped me sort of, reach out more to people, support people more. But then sometimes just check myself and be like, if I'm feeling like, oh my God, I need to do more for people, like, no, like you're doing enough. Like, just be appreciative of yourself. So, oh,
Thank you. Yeah, that's such a great viewpoint. Like, you're right. If somebody's reached out to you and it's made a difference, then of course, like, it would be the same for somebody else. So if you have it in you to do it, do it. Do you guys have any other questions for Nick?
Yeah, just to touch on what you just said, because I even wrote a post about this last night, is that I can be very easily like invested in other people and go overboard sometimes in investing and wanting to help people to the point where I just burn myself. Like, so how do you personally like find that limit? Like, because you can make a difference, but at the same time you need to leave something left for yourself.
yeah. If anyone follows me on social media, I disappear at times. That's me like taking care of myself. Like, I'm not, you guys are all very good at like almost posting every day or making reels. And like, sometimes I just disappear, and like, I've gotten okay with like, oh my God, if you don't post every day, the algorithm's going to hate you and you'll never grow. And like, then I'll never grow. Right. That's fine. Like, if that is, but I need to take care of myself. Right. And so then there's times I hop on and I'm like, I'm seeing all my friends post and I'm reaching out and I'm being supportive. So first starting there, like giving myself boundaries and not like holding myself to, okay, well, this social media world demands I be on every day and I be supporting everyone every day. And no, that's too much. And like first starting with myself, right? Like, it's a stressful time in my life with job stuff and everything going on in my world at work. So sometimes grounding myself in the beginning of the day, like, and just saying, like, hey, Nick, this is going to be a little tough day. There's a lot going on you don't know and can't control. So, like, starting there and saying, like, if I don't have someone to, if I'm not going to reach out today, it's because I'm back to work in the office all the time. I don't know if my job's going to get thrown away. So outside of that, then it's like, okay, well, what makes me feel better? Like sometimes too. And so sometimes it's reaching out to others brings me back joy, right? And makes me feel a little better. But also like having friends that I can just send a text to and be like, this sucks. I feel shitty. Can you listen? Right. And, you know, if I don't have someone available that day, then sort of like taking a step back and saying, let's take care of myself, right? Instead of like what you said, I used to dig very deep into in those moments when I was the most upset myself or triggered or like suffering myself, I would reach out to everyone and I'd be like, I'm going to solve my own problems by being something for everyone. And I have gotten, thank you therapy, but I've gotten to the point in my life where I've said, Nick, all that does is make it worse. Like, and it's like a dopamine hit. You're like, oh my god, I helped 56 people today. I feel the best I've ever felt, and then I sit in my own thoughts for a second. I'm like, oh, I feel shitty. You know, like when it wears off, right? So like just realizing, like, to me at least, being empathetic, being like the sensitive of myself, being investing in people, helping people is almost sometimes like this drug that I need to like quit and be like, okay, Nick, if you're not okay, stop, fix yourself, fix the people in your life first, and then you can reach out and like help other people. And in the meantime, you can just be like, you can just like a post and just write a good comment or something like that. You don't have to be like all in, right? So I think it just, I dealt with it. I burned out a lot. I trashed some friendships probably along the way that I shouldn't have because of it, and so I've learned, right? So don't have a great answer other than like I overdid it, and I fucked around and found out. Are we allowed to use f bombs on this? Okay, good.
Oh yeah, you listened to us before.
I know. I
We have Trisha on the podcast. Yeah,
the F word is a comma in Trisha's world.
No, it's a sentence enhancer. You know, when you use it properly,
it could be used
really
on its own for Trisha. It is the sentence.
Oh, thank you. No, that's a good. Yeah, I like that.
I want to know.
I need to adopt it.
I want to know from the mom's side. I mean, I know not every wife or every mother has a supportive spouse or partner, but for those of us that do, I want to know, like, how do you feel like we could support fathers more that are present, that do care? I don't know, like, do you have any, I know this is very like a general question and it's going to be different for everybody, but from your perspective as a father, as a husband, and somebody that has kids and everything, like how can we as moms or as spouses to our partner, like how can we help them out? I don't know, feeling the less of the guilt or feeling acknowledged for what they do. I'm curious to know on my part. So
yeah. I'll say this, and I'll get dad hate for this probably too, but like I feel like sometimes dads are held to the bare minimum and then applauded. Wow, you watched your kid one night. You're a great dad. Like, you may be a great dad, but you're not a great dad because one time you watched your kids like overnight. Like your wife probably has watched the kids by herself 80 times to your one. I'm just using examples. So like sometimes I feel like moms should feel okay holding dads accountable to more than just the bare minimum. Like those dad days are gone as far as I'm concerned. Like my parents, our parents maybe had a different life situation they lived in, but I feel like in this time in 2025, like dads can and should do more and be more present in their families' lives. So when I hear sometimes that like moms are like so impressed that their dad did the bare minimum, I don't say anything because it's not my place. In my mind, I just think like, no, he should be doing more. Like, but it's at the end of the day, it's a relationship agreement between husband and wife on what it should be, right? So I'm not going to tell anyone how your household should be. What if you're asking me though? I feel like that, like, if you want us to help and be more present, hold us more accountable. but also like, I mentioned earlier, like sort of like just helping us take pressure off ourselves, right? That you probably aren't aware of, because a lot of men aren't sharing their burdens of feeling like stress at job, or like what it means if they lose their job, or if we don't make enough money, how we won't make bills. You'd say like, even if you're not the budget person, the bill person in your house, like be involved in it a little bit, because it takes pressure off me if you can understand like, oh my god, if you buy this thing, like this, I'm gonna feel more pressure, right? And it doesn't just mean male, right? Whoever is the person doing the budget probably feels a little more angst when we buy something and you're like, now I need to like find a way to make more money, or like we have to cut something, like. So whoever it is, be both sides, just be a little involved so you're both aware of like, hey, what's going on with things. But like, um to your question, I think just like be communicate how you're feeling. I don't think we always know, and I think if you are quiet, we're assuming everything's fine. I even ask my wife too many times, like, "Are you okay?" To the point where she's like, "I am okay. You don't have to ask." So maybe I'm like too far sensitive in the other direction of like, she's definitely wrong. Something's wrong. She's being quiet, and she's like, "No, I've done therapy calls for 9 hours today. I don't want to talk to you. No offense." So, like, in the flip side, like, I'm too aware of like the energy in the room, being like something's off, but then I'm thinking it's me. So, I think communicating is helpful, but just like, understanding that like we do carry some of this weight, and like it helps to feel like you guys are, like just helping us through those moments, or understanding them enough. We don't like, you're not going to fix that for us. We're always going to feel like we need to provide. But like, if you understand and like can like support us in those moments, I think we'll feel a lot better, because we'll feel like we're not doing it alone.
Thank you. Yeah. It's things I
Thank
don't think
you.
about.
Do you guys have any more questions?
I don't have a question. I do appreciate though that I feel like even when we've talked about certain things, that you're not blowing smoke up anybody's ass, and I really appreciate that. Like you're very real, and like you communicate things in a very nice way, but you're also very honest. And I just feel like lately I've been using the term like whenever I've met somebody or they've given me a different impression of them, like it's like meeting the wizard, like you pull the curtain down and they are just not that way, and it's nice because I feel like with you, like you're very like you're very honest, but at the same time, like you can communicate and deliver things in a very nice matter of fact way. And I think that's such a great way to be able to communicate, especially with women. And because like with men, like I feel like a lot of ways to communicate is through joking and stuff like that. And so, or like in a very, just a totally different way. And so that's really stuck out to me anytime we've chatted about, different topics, running or not running,
Yeah. Well, thank you. You guys are so sweet. This is like, I thank you for all your kind words. I think like the weird thing for me is like I'm terrible at small talk, and I think men are really good at it. So like I always find myself, if I'm at a party or somewhere, like talking to generally a woman, but like someone who just wants to talk about something deeper than like how's the weather, sports, like this thing in the news. Like I'm like, oh well, how do you feel at your job, or like tell me about your job, or like what's going on in your life, or like tell me your deepest darkest secret. No, I don't do that one, but like like I'd rather talk something like more deep with anyone I know versus like small talk. Like I just walk away from those conversations, and like most men are like could small talk for an hour and a half, not gain any bit of knowledge from a conversation, and just be like, had a great talk with John. And I'm like, what did you talk about? I'm like, we don't know. Like, we just talked. We're men. But like, I can't do, I'm terrible at it. It's not, I don't want to do it either.
Yeah.
So like, to your point of like, when I reach out to people, it's not like, oh, look, like if it's going to be small talk, I probably wouldn't even reach out to someone. Like I wouldn't even write a comment.
I love small talk. I'll talk to people about the weather, and then I will jump from small talk to deepest, darkest secret immediately.
Yeah, same.
You don't trust about we don't like snow? Okay, so tell me everything now. I'm kidding.
I feel like that kind of wraps up what the podcast is, because it's like small talk and then we're just sharing our deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah.
Always.
But I love that Nick's
Yeah.
like, I'll just walk away from it. I'm going to try that next time. And neighbor's like, "Ooh, did you hear it's going to snow?" Don't even say anything. Just walk away.
I usually leave my wife those conversations. It's very funny. Like the neighbors will be talking and like they'll be having small talk, and I'll just sort of like walk slowly to the back and like I'm out of the conversation completely, and she's just left talking with them. And like I'm like, I think my neighbors don't even know who I am half the time because Kelly has all the
My
small talk.
husband does the same
That is
thing.
me.
Everybody knows it. They're like, "Oh, Jake just did the Irish exit again, didn't he?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it's called. You just disappear."
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Nothing of it. So I'm left. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wives caught in the. Yeah, I don't like small talk either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna read a review. Is that good? It's from Nick. Just kidding.
He's
We
like,
have to leave a review. We got to leave a review on your podcast.
Yes.
Between two
Oh, I do.
coaches. If you
Well, I
guys
get
are looking
4
for
reviews.
another.
We get 4, and you guys only get 1 from me. That's how the math
Oh,
works.
Yeah,
It's true.
we'll have to have your
gotta
co-host
get Amanda.
Amanda Katz on, and then she can
Yes!
write us one.
She's
You
like the
should.
biggest.
She's awesome.
She's a dog mom. She's a mom
Yeah.
supporter.
I'll
Yeah,
go
I-
on and I'll just say being a dog mom is harder than being a human mom.
Her dog is like the coolest. I love
Dogs
Amanda.
can be a lot. Okay. Greetings from Wisconsin. I started listening to the Miles with Moms podcast last week and I've binged through all the episodes. Side note, if you want more, we have a secret podcast on Patreon, guys. Okay, it's such a relief to hear you guys work through so many insecurities and fears as a mother runner. You are all so hilarious and warm that I want to send you a big hug. So,
Bring it.
Cute.
thank you.
Aw.
All of our insecurities.
If you want to hear more of those, I've got some. So we have a lot of episodes to make.
Yeah. We're going to put them all on Patreon.
Nick,
Oh
is
my
there
God.
anything else that you want to share
yeah.
to everyone?
I do want to say, I mean, I should have said this earlier. Like, I appreciate all your kind comments. I don't want to come off like I am like the perfect dad or I know everything, the perfect supporter. Like, my wife will say I'm mess up often and I'm doing like, and so I think the one thing I'll just say, like, I'm very empathetic and sensitive. So I do tend to like understand women. I don't want to say it like that. I just understand like what it's like to be no male understands women, but like understand like what it's like to be a mom and like from experience with my mom and like hearing things my wife says with her friends, and so I've always just had this side of me to understand and hear that stuff and go, okay, well this is where I should lean, this is where I should go, but by no means am I like the perfect dad or the perfect husband or like this. Like I struggle with stuff too. I'm just sort of sharing my journey. I just wanted to I don't want to come across like, oh, I know it all or this is every dad. Like
You don't.
yeah.
No,
don't.
you
Did
don't.
not
You don't
come
at
across
all.
that
No.
way. I think it's great to have a different perspective.
We
So
may,
you
we may
did
get a lot of moms though that listen to this episode and be like, my husband needs to step it up. Not just
I'm gonna get so much dad hate. They're like, I heard you. My wife talked about you on this podcast.
Now she's telling me to get off the couch and start cleaning.
What's wrong with you, Nick?
Hey, well, more listeners. We've got dads listening to it on their way to work now. Dad podcast, okay, guys.
Well, if you guys want to learn more about Nick, everything will be in the show notes. And we are so glad that you were able to join us. And we'll probably have you on again because I think there's a lot of different topics that we could cover with you. So
Well, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
thanks
for
for
coming
you.
yes.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.